I mean, we're talking about property rights, and if you have abstracted, go back in timeline and history, John Locke,
Hmm.
from if you look at it from the America's founding lens, or if you go much further back and how property rights were developed or established, and now we're talking about digital property rights, and more specifically for consumers.
Hmm.
Institutions might have different interpretations of that. As far as consumers are concerned, what should it mean to a user or consumer when we say digital property rights? When we get so excited about it?
Yeah. When you talk about John Locke, when he says, basically the work of our hands, what he really means is that the sort of labor with the work of our hands is ultimately ours, right? In that sense that, if I pluck the apple, right, the fruits of the labor of owning the apple is now my property because I garnered it. But of course, I need to own the land in which that sort of apple can grow, right? So this activity basically gives me the property to then trade and sell, right? That's obviously, a 16th, 17th centuries construction of property, right? But today, what is the property of that is important? And it is no longer the property of our hands. It is the property of our minds, right? If you think about the sort of creators, musicians, artists, in fact, the fastest growing asset class today, larger than gold, is intellectual property, right? If you think about the biggest companies in the world, it's all IP, right? It's about an $80 trillion market compared to gold's $27 trillion market, right? That doesn't even include the companies involved, just the value of the IP, intellectual property, patent rights, trade secrets, all that type of stuff. And all of this comes from our mind, right? It's things that we invented. We created, arguably out of nothing, but obviously created huge, huge value as a result. And so that is a property we need to protect. And I think a lot of people take that for granted. So if you're an inventor and you own a patent, good for you, right? But if you don't own the inventions of your creations, even for a limited period, then you don't have the ability to benefit from that, right? And I think that's the point why digital property rights is important, because today we spend so much more time digitally than we spend it in the analog world. And all of the value, and this is the big point that we keep trying to make, is all of the value you make online actually is digital value to which you own no property.